What's the biggest nonsense your child has heard from their teacher? One of my kids was assigned to read the novel The Grapes of Wrath at school. For those who haven't read it, it's about a poor family that moves west in search of a better life. There's also a small story about a turtle crossing the road. The teacher explained to the kids that the turtle represents the family and that they had to leave their old life behind, just like the turtle shed its shell. When the kids told her that turtles don't do that, she was very embarrassed. She didn't know that because, in Mario, turtles come out of their shells. I asked, "How do you spell the word?" The teacher said, "There's no such word. You can't use it." I replied, "But it exists." The teacher insisted, "There's no such word." My classmates were just as surprised as I was. When I was in 4th grade, our gym teacher told us that sleeping on your stomach could cause stomach cancer. Another teacher, in 6th grade, said that sleeping on your stomach would make you gain weight. My 7th grade physics teacher condescendingly told me that dry ice doesn't exist. Another teacher told my daughter that she was pronouncing her own last name incorrectly, her own last name, not the teacher's. When I was in 6th grade, I had a small argument with a classmate about how to pronounce his last name. My mom worked with his parents and told me the correct pronunciation. When we were receiving our diplomas, my classmate admitted that he had been pronouncing his own last name wrong all those years, and his parents only corrected him that morning. Teachers told my child that he wasn't allowed to read the Guinness Book of World Records. The school library had a complete collection of all the volumes of that book, but they forbade the kids from taking them. If anyone broke the rule, they were punished. Yet, they didn't remove the collection from the library. That's obviously strange. When asked why the books couldn't be read, they said something like, "It's not a textbook," or "It's not for kids." If that's the case, why keep the entire collection in the school library? Why not at least remove them from the shelves? In 9th grade, we were studying food chains and nutrients in biology. I asked the teacher, "What place do mushrooms occupy in the food chain? What vitamins and other nutrients can you get from mushrooms?" The teacher replied, "Mushrooms aren't part of the food chain. They only feed on the remains of dead organisms, so they have no nutritional value." A teacher tried to convince me that Lenin and Stalin were the same person, whose real name was Lenin Stalin. I'm not even from Russia. This came up during an economics class. My son was given a homework assignment to draw his dream house. He got an F because the house he drew was too unrealistic. He also got an F for a free topic essay about dinosaurs because the teacher said dinosaurs never existed since they aren't mentioned in the Bible. When he pointed out that air conditioners aren't mentioned in the Bible either, he got another F. This happened in the 90s at a public school in rural Texas. When my son was 11, his teacher accused him of lying about being colorblind. He was punished for it because the teacher didn't know that colorblindness is a real condition. I said, "I'll upload my essay to an FTP server and later put it online." The school librarian asked, "Where are you uploading it?" I replied, "To the internet." The librarian said, "Are you crazy? You can't just upload random stuff to the internet." A couple of years ago, my daughter started attending a preparatory school. The teachers knew she was seeing a speech therapist and still struggled with speaking, but on her first day, she got a bad grade for not being able to tell the class about her summer. That was just the first of many problems at that school. By early November of that year, we transferred her to another school. Let me tell you about some nonsense I heard from my son's teacher. We were on a tour of the school garden, and the teacher was rattling on about the vegetables and plants they grow. We got to some huge sunflowers, and the teacher said, "These are our sunflowers. They're used to make popcorn." I asked, "Do you mean they're added to popcorn?" The teacher replied, "No, popcorn is made from sunflower seeds. I can assure you, popcorn is made from corn kernels." She just sighed, probably thinking I was some kind of Neanderthal. We moved on to the shrub section, and she pointed at thyme and rosemary, saying, "This is thyme and rosemary. They're used to make chocolate." I said, "You mean they're added to chocolate, and it gives it a weird taste?" I never understood how kids could like that. She replied, "No, they don't just add them to chocolate. Chocolate is made from them." By that point, I was tired of arguing and stayed silent for the rest of the tour, wondering how I even managed to zip up my pants in the morning, let alone get a degree and a job at a school. At the beginning of the school year, I scored the highest on a test. At the end of the year, we took the same test again, and I scored the highest again. But I wasn't allowed to join the class for a celebratory dessert because I showed no progress in my test results. When we were reading Winnie the Pooh, the teacher said the word honeycomb doesn't exist and was just made up by a Milne. That same teacher was taking pictures of the stars at night with the flash on her phone. My parents used to joke about how my teacher told them I'd likely have trouble reading because I skipped words literally. But I was already reading books every day after school and doing it perfectly. When I was a kid, my teacher said the book I was reading was too difficult for my age and that I was probably just pretending to understand it. She confiscated the Golden Compass, which I bought with my own saved money, and made me pick one of her books, picture books for little kids. My kindergarten teacher told me I was behind and would never learn to read. I never went back to that kindergarten. This happened to my niece. She was being bullied at school, and the teacher told her she should just deal with it, think about how her bully feels, and that he was only showing he liked her that way. My favorite line was, "You're still such little kids. It'll all pass." The kindergarten teacher where my brother went tried to convince him his name was Alexander, even though his name is just Alex. There was another boy in the group named Alexander, but he preferred to be called Alex. The teacher reduced my brother to tears, insisting his name was just a shortened form of Alexander. My parents had to step in and tell the teacher to leave him alone. How can you argue with a child about their own name? When I was in kindergarten, my mom was called in because I did something wrong. The issue was that when I was asked to draw my family, I drew everyone as ducks. My mom, dad, brothers, and sisters were all ducks. The teacher insisted it wasn't normal. My mom asked why, and they said, "We know it's not normal, but it's definitely not normal." That really upset my mom. When I was in 5th grade, my science teacher tried to convince me that heavier objects fall faster. To prove it, he dropped a piece of paper and a pencil on the floor. I told him the paper fell slower because of air resistance. Then I dropped a paper clip and a pencil, and the teacher could see they hit the floor at the same time. He said I threw the paper clip with force and just let the pencil go. He's still teaching. When I was in 6th grade, the teacher gave us an assignment to find and write down 10 poems on different topics of our choice. I chose animals. 1 poem was about ants, 2 about dogs, 3 about lions, and so on. When the teacher checked our work and returned it, I noticed my grade was lowered. I asked why, and the teacher said, "You chose poems about animals, but since ants aren't animals, I didn't give points for that poem." My 11-year-old brain just exploded at that statement. I had to bring a signed letter from the biology teacher confirming that ants are animals to get my unfairly deducted points back. I can't forget something that happened to me in preschool. It's one of my earliest memories. We were sitting on the carpet with the teacher, and she asked us where we might see a squirrel. I raised my hand right away. Other kids said trees, bushes, or grass. When she asked me, I said, on the wires, because I saw squirrels on power lines every day. The teacher told me I was wrong. At such a young age, I learned that teachers aren't always right. This happened back in 1985, and I should have forgotten about it by now. My daughter was on a field trip, and I was chaperoning. The teacher was talking about Native Americans. I nearly pulled out all my hair listening to her. She said, during the Ice Age, like in that famous movie, all the oceans froze. Native Americans walked across the frozen ocean from Europe and migrated west. They lived in tents in hot weather and wigwams in cold weather. They didn't know how to plant crops, they only hunted animals and gathered plants for food. They hunted elephants in Florida. They made arrowheads from limestone because it's very strong. That's not even everything. Literally every sentence was fiction. When I think back, I regret not interrupting her to correct her. The most shocking part was when I looked around and saw the other parents and teachers listening and nodding. When my son was about 5, his kindergarten teacher decided to cure all the kids in the group of their biggest fears. My son was afraid of the dark, so the teacher sat him in the middle of the room and covered him with a blanket to convince him there was nothing to fear. The next year, she no longer worked there. I don't have kids yet, but my teacher once told me that if I didn't cut my long bangs, boys wouldn't like me, and I'd stay single forever. I was 12 at the time. I remember 2 stories about nonsense I heard from teachers, and honestly, I don't know which is worse. First, when we were in 3rd grade studying units of measurement, someone asked what's longer, a meter or a yard. The teacher pulled out 2-yard-long rulers and said one was a meter and the other a yard. He held them side by side and told the class they're the same length. Second, my middle school teacher told us that the lack of exposure to germs in developed countries weakened our immune systems and led to autoimmune diseases like AIDS. She also said people in third world countries, like in Africa, have stronger immune systems so they don't have diseases like AIDS. Slightly off topic, but when I was in kindergarten, my teacher told my parents I'd never become an artist. That confused my parents because they never wondered if I could be an artist. It wasn't important. I didn't even want to be one, I just liked drawing when I was bored. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher told me that dinosaur bones were buried in the ground by the devil to mislead people and distract them from the existence of God. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new, super interesting discussions. In the meantime, check out our other videos.